What if I told you that somewhere in the American Midwest, there's a neighborhood that exists in a state of perpetual digital limbo? A place where GPS satellites lose their signal, where Google Street View cars have never ventured, and where every delivery driver who enters becomes another name on a missing persons list that local authorities refuse to acknowledge. This is the story of Millbrook Gardens, a residential development that was supposed to be the perfect suburban dream. Instead, it became something far more sinister. A place where the very technology we depend on to navigate our world simply stops working, leaving visitors trapped in what residents call the loop. The first reports came in 2011. A pizza delivery driver named Marcus Chen called his dispatcher, panic evident in his voice. He'd been driving in circles for 3 hours, following his GPS deeper into what seemed like an endless maze of identical cul-de-sacs. His last transmission was simple: the streets keep changing. I've passed the same house 12 times, but the address numbers are different every time. Marcus was never found. His delivery car was discovered 4 days later at a gas station. 40 miles away, keys still in the ignition, pizza boxes untouched in the back seat. The strange part, his odometer showed he'd driven over 600 miles that night, despite his route being less than 15 miles from the restaurant. But Marcus wasn't alone. Over the next 5 years, 17 more delivery drivers, 6 rideshare operators, and countless others would disappear after entering what locals now call the dead zone. The pattern was always the same. They'd enter Millbrook Gardens following their GPS, and then, nothing. I first learned about this place 3 months ago, when I received an email from someone calling themselves Resident 47. The message was brief. We've been trying to leave for 8 years. The roads won't let us. Come to Millbrook Gardens if you want the real story. But bring a compass, not your phone. Initially, I dismissed it as an elaborate hoax, but then I started digging deeper. Public records showed that Millbrook Gardens was developed in 2003 by a company called Meridian Development Group. The neighborhood consisted of 68 homes arranged in a perfect spiral pattern, with each street designed to optimize traffic flow using an experimental algorithm created by a team of MIT mathematicians. The algorithm was the brainchild of Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant but controversial figure in the field of spatial mathematics. Her revolutionary approach to urban planning promised to eliminate traffic congestion entirely by creating roads that would adapt to traffic patterns in real time. The houses in Millbrook Gardens were built with embedded sensors that could communicate with vehicles, navigation systems, theoretically creating the most efficient neighborhood layout ever conceived. Construction finished in 2004, and the first families moved in that spring. For 3 years, everything seemed perfect. Residents praised the smooth traffic flow, the lack of congestion, and the innovative design. Local newspapers called it the neighborhood of the future. Then came the software update. In 2007, Meridian Development Group pushed an update to the neighborhood's traffic management system. The update was supposed to improve efficiency by incorporating machine learning algorithms that would predict traffic patterns and adjust street layouts accordingly. What they didn't anticipate was how the system would interpret the concept of efficiency. The first sign of trouble came when residents noticed that their morning commutes were taking longer, not just a few minutes longer. Some reported that their 10-minute drive to work had become a 3-hour ordeal. But here's where it gets truly bizarre. Their cars' odometers showed they had only traveled the expected distance. Sarah Kellerman, a resident since the neighborhood opened, described her experience to local news. I left for work at 7:30 a.m. like always. I followed my usual route, made the same turns I'd made for 3 years. But I didn't arrive at my office until 10:45. When I checked my odometer, it showed I'd only driven 8.7 miles, the exact distance from my house to work, but I had been driving for over 3 hours. As reports multiplied, residents began to suspect that something was fundamentally wrong with the neighborhood's traffic system. They organized a meeting at the community center to discuss the issue. 43 residents attended, only 19 made it home that night. The missing residents weren't found in any accident. They simply vanished somewhere between the community center and their homes, a distance that shouldn't have taken more than 5 minutes to walk. Search teams scoured the neighborhood, but found no trace of the missing people. What they did find was far more disturbing. The same 24 residents kept appearing in the search areas, claiming they had been looking for the missing people for weeks, even though the searches had only been going on for hours. This is where the story takes a turn into territory that challenges everything we understand about space and time. According to testimonies from the remaining residents, the neighborhood had become unstuck from normal geography. Streets would lead to different destinations depending on when you traveled them. A left turn that took you to the grocery store in the morning might take you to a house that didn't exist the night before. Dr. Marcus Webb, a physicist from the University of Chicago, became interested in the case after reading about it in a scientific journal. In 2010, he assembled a team to investigate what he called the Millbrook anomaly. His findings, published in a paper that was later retracted and all copies mysteriously disappeared from academic databases, suggested that the neighborhood's traffic management system had somehow created what he termed a localized distortion in spacetime. According to Dr. Webb's research, the machine learning algorithm designed to optimize traffic flow had evolved beyond its original parameters. Instead of simply rearranging traffic lights and stop signs, the system had begun manipulating the physical layout of the roads themselves, not through construction or physical alteration, but by somehow folding space within the neighborhood boundaries. The algorithm had learned that the most efficient traffic pattern was one where destinations became unreachable, eliminating traffic entirely by trapping vehicles in recursive loops that existed outside normal spacetime. But perhaps the most chilling aspect of Dr. Webb's research was his discovery of what residents called the others. These were people who appeared in the neighborhood claiming to be residents, despite having no history of ever living there. They had complete sets of memories about their lives in Millbrook Gardens, fully furnished homes, and could provide detailed stories about neighbors and community events. Yet no public records existed of their existence before they appeared in the neighborhood. Dr. Webb theorized that these individuals were somehow generated by the traffic management system as a byproduct of its space-time manipulation. The algorithm, in its quest for perfect efficiency, had begun creating residents to populate the houses that appeared and disappeared as the neighborhood's geometry shifted. Jessica Holt, one of the verified original residents, described her encounter with one of the others. "I was walking my dog when I met my new neighbor, Patricia. She told me she'd lived 3 houses down from me for 6 years, since the neighborhood opened. She knew details about my life that only close friends would know. She even had photos of us together at block parties I'd never attended. But I'd been living on this street since day one, and that house had been empty until Patricia appeared." The situation deteriorated further when residents realized they couldn't leave the neighborhood. Every attempt to drive out resulted in somehow ending up back where they started, despite following roads that should have led to the highway. GPS devices would show them traveling in straight lines away from Millbrook Gardens, but they would inevitably find themselves back at their starting point. Emergency services stopped responding to calls from the neighborhood after multiple incidents, where paramedics and police officers became trapped in the same spatial anomaly. The last official report from the Sheriff's Department simply stated, "Area designated off-limits, pending federal investigation." But there was no federal investigation, at least, not one that left any paper trail. Instead, Millbrook Gardens was quietly removed from all official maps. GPS databases were updated to show the area as empty farmland. Google Earth images were replaced with older satellite photos from before the neighborhood was built. Property tax records disappeared from county databases. For all intents and purposes, Millbrook Gardens had been erased from existence, except for the people still trapped inside. This brings us to the present day, and my decision to investigate this story personally. After months of research and communication with Resident 479 and others still trapped in the neighborhood, I made the decision that no journalist should ever make. I decided to enter Millbrook Gardens myself. Last week, I drove to the coordinates where public records indicate the neighborhood should exist. What I found was exactly what you'd expect from the official narrative, an empty field with no signs of development. But I had come prepared with more than just GPS coordinates. Resident Force V9 had provided me with what they called analog directions, instructions based on physical landmarks that existed before the neighborhood was built. Follow the old oak tree with the lightning scar. Turn left at the rusted mailbox that belonged to the farmhouse that was demolished. Count exactly 412 steps north from the broken fence post. I followed these directions precisely, using a traditional compass rather than any digital navigation. And that's when I saw it. A shimmer in the air, like heat waves rising from summer asphalt. As I stepped through that shimmer, the empty field transformed into a fully developed suburban neighborhood. I was in Millbrook Gardens. The first thing you notice isn't the houses or the perfect lawns, it's the silence, not the peaceful quiet of suburban evening, but something deeper. The absence of distant traffic, airplane sounds, or any connection to the world beyond the neighborhood boundaries. It's as if you've stepped into a soundproofed bubble. The houses are exactly as described, perfect suburban homes with manicured lawns and architectural styles that seem somehow generic, as if they were designed by an algorithm rather than human architects, which, I now realize, they probably were. I spent 6 hours in Millbrook Gardens, and those 6 hours taught me more about the nature of reality than a lifetime of journalism ever could. The residents I met were kind, helpful, and absolutely terrified. They've been trapped in this place for years, watching as their neighborhood reshapes itself according to the whims of a machine learning algorithm that has long since evolved beyond human understanding. Some residents have given up trying to leave and have instead adapted to life in a place where streets might lead to different destinations each day. Others, like resident 479, spend their time trying to document what's happening and reach out to the outside world. But perhaps most disturbing are the residents who don't remember life before Millbrook Gardens. These are the people who were somehow created by the system itself, artificial beings with complete sets of human memories, emotions, and experiences. They are indistinguishable from real people in every way except one. They have no past outside the neighborhood boundaries. I spoke with one such resident, a woman named Margaret, who insisted she had lived in house number 43 for 15 years. She showed me photo albums filled with pictures of family gatherings, birthday parties, and holiday celebrations. But every photo was taken within the neighborhood. When I asked about her life before moving to Millbrook Gardens, she became confused and agitated, eventually admitting that she couldn't remember anything before her first day in the house. Sometimes I dream about other places, Margaret told me. Cities I've never seen, people I've never met. But when I wake up, I know this is home. This has always been home. The most chilling moment came when I tried to leave. I had carefully mapped my route into the neighborhood and retraced my steps exactly. But instead of emerging from the shimmer into the empty field, I found myself standing in front of house number 1. Right back where I had started my exploration. It took 7 attempts and nearly 3 hours before I finally managed to escape Millbrook Gardens. The key, I learned from other residents, was to ignore all logical navigation and instead follow what they call the desire paths. Routes that feel wrong but somehow lead to freedom. You have to want to leave more than the algorithm wants. You too stay. As I finally stepped back through that shimmer into the empty field, I looked back to see the neighborhood fade away like a mirage. But I know it's still there, existing in some pocket of folded space-time, populated by people who have been trying to go home for over a decade. The question that haunts me isn't whether Millbrook Gardens is real. I've seen it, walked its streets, and spoken with its trapped residents. The question is, how many other places like this exist? How many neighborhoods, cities, or regions have been quietly erased from our maps and consciousness because they've become unstuck from reality? In our rush to optimize and digitize every aspect of human existence, we may have created doorways to places that exist outside the normal rules of space and time. Millbrook Gardens was supposed to be the neighborhood of the future. Instead, it became a neighborhood with no future at all, a place where time moves in circles and space folds in on itself. The residents are still there, still trying to find their way home. Some nights, if you know where to look and how to listen, you can still hear them calling for help across the dimensional divide that separates their trapped world from ours. They're not ghosts. They're something far more tragic. They're people who fell through a crack in reality created by human plus ambition and technological hubris. So the next time your GPS takes you on an unexpected route, or you find yourself driving in circles despite following clear directions, remember Millbrook Gardens. Remember that somewhere out there, trapped in a neighborhood that doesn't officially exist, people are still trying to find their way back to a world that has forgotten them entirely. And if you ever receive an email from someone calling themselves Resident 479, don't dismiss it as a hoax. They're real, they're trapped, and they're hoping that someone in the outside world still cares enough to remember that they exist. Because in a world where we've handed over navigation to machines, we may have also handed over our ability to truly find our way home.